Hello everyone and welcome to the Fortress. Trent here, and I'm going to be doing a review for the newest Netflix series and kind of reboot in the Masters of the Universe franchise, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. Now, if you're new to the channel, please hit like and subscribe, let us know your feedback in the comments, and don't forget you can always follow our handles on social media at Fortress Nerds on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. But before we go any further, welcome to the Fortress. Okay, so I just want to get this out of the way. Don't go into this series expecting She-Ra from the 80s. There's a lot of lore and a lot of elements that do return, but this is completely different, and it's actually aimed at building a really interesting story. My main criticism, and it's only a slight criticism because I really enjoyed this series, is the animation overall. It's very basic, very bland. It is aimed kind of at children, but adults, so it's that awkward blend of simplistic animation and kind of that animation that you're used to in Voltron that's really detailed and fluid. The way the characters move, beautiful. Really fluid transitions and really enjoyable, but just the aesthetics of it. Adora and the rest of the characters, they all have a very... If you think of action figures back from the 60s and 70s that have no shape at all, they look like they've just been made of Play-Doh. That's essentially what they look like. There's no shape, there's no shading. The only element of shading on the characters is actually this really annoying strip across their nose. It doesn't fit. It looks good in some circumstances when the lighting matches, but to have it there permanently, it just really took me out of what I was looking at, and anytime they had any type of facial expression, it still remained there, to the point when they closed their eyes, it actually then covered their eyes, or half of their eye as well. It was really off-putting and awkward. However, the character designs, whilst they are questionable, they are quite enjoyable. Glimmer and Bo, they both look really good. Every character is very unique in the way they look, and they stand out a lot. They stand out a lot. I can't complain about how much they actually stand out, and their overall characterization. The voice actors do an amazing job in this series. They show a lot of character and a lot of personality, and you can tell they're actually enjoying reading the lines that they are. The standout character for me is Bo. He goes through a range of emotions, and he's actually kind of the comedic relief. They do play on the women empowerment movement a lot, which is not a bad thing. It's really enjoyable. He's their damsel in distress, but he's also able to fend for himself. So every character is depicted as strong, and they don't really fall into the typical tropes that, you know, series from earlier decades fell into. So the background designs, they're really good as well. You get to see the Horde environment, which is all this kind of robotic industrial vibe, the Whispering Woods, and Crystal Palace, if you will, which is the home of Light Hope. But the set designs were really good. They had some really beautiful and spectacular scenery. I would have liked to have seen some more variation in this scenery. It kind of fell between three different environments, which was Glimmer's room, the Whispering Woods, Light Hope's Palace, and the Horde Stronghold. So I would have liked to have seen more variation. It did kind of grow a bit tired as it went on, but you did get some really good set pieces, and the animation of these settings showed a lot more detail than what the actual character designs did. And that was what really kind of took me out of the series, was you had these character designs that were quite bland and basic against these backdrops that were really kind of detailed and nice. But that's my only negative. I really enjoyed the story. The big positives for me with this series was the relationship between Adora / She-Ra and Catra. Now, these were two allies at the start of the series that had a huge falling out, and the whole series kind of revolves around their relationship and dynamic, with Catra going on to her own path within the Horde, and Adora finding her own path as She-Ra. A mantle which is passed down from generations, and Adora is actually the first She-Ra in 100 years, which is a really interesting twist on the lore. Hordak and Shadow Weaver, they are present, but ultimately they are not the main villains of this season anyway. They are an overarching figure, with Catra kind of working her way up the Horde ranks to appease Hordak and actually overtaking Shadow Weaver. So once again, you've got dissension within the Horde ranks to try and prove their power. And then on the other half, you get to see Adora grow as She-Ra and interact with all these princesses. There are several instances where Catra and Adora come back together, and that's the strongest points of the series. Like, there's a really strong moment when they're in Light Hope's palace, where you get to see the history of Catra and Adora as they are growing up within the Horde, and it gets really emotional. There's some really great characterization there. So that's a really, really big strong point in the series. And what else I enjoyed were the different powers of the princesses. They each have a different role, even though they aren't really featured prevalently, or as prevalently as they probably should be in something called the Princesses of Power. The main princess that you deal with is Glimmer, who ends up glitching and her powers malfunction later in the season. But this is definitely a hero's journey, and how Adora is going to grow into the role of She-Ra. But yeah, that's the main positives and negatives. Another thing, you kind of have Swiftwind, who's the horse, some really good comedic elements there. But if you like Voltron, anyone who knows Voltron knows that that was a very slow burn for the first season. And that's kind of what we're getting with this season. It's not giving away too much yet. It's only 13 episodes long, but it's really enjoyable. Some great music, some great scenes, and great characterization. It's definitely going to build along as Season 2 and Season 3, hopefully, they come along, because this was a really, really strong... It was a safe but strong foundation season that gets to introduce you to the characters and their different personalities, but it's definitely something that's going to grow later on. And if you are looking for He-Man, he's not there, which is not a bad thing. Let Adora grow as She-Ra in her own right, and then it can introduce the other Masters of the Universe later down the track, which is definitely what this is setting up to do. There's been hints of it throughout the season. But yeah, I really enjoyed this season. As I said, the animation was the only thing that was a negative for me, but hopefully they learn from this experience and grow and put a bit more detail into the characters and kind of show some more shading, because the lighting was the only thing, and just, yeah, the general designs were the only thing that was kind of a step back for me. But I really enjoyed everything else, and I think you will too. I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. And yeah, a good safe first season that hopefully they grow on. And honestly, you can see I got She-Ra back there. I love Masters of the Universe, and I can't wait to see more. Make sure you follow our handles, engage with us in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the first season of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power? Do you want to see another season? Let me know below. And as always, you're watching The Fortress.